Hi, I'm Matthew Herzberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. For this episode, I have Dr. Glenda Aleman. She is an incredible story. She has a great perspective on a myopia management practice about Ortho-K and where she's come from, her journey. I mean, this is such an inspiring story. She has taught me so much, and I learned something from her every time we speak. If you are a paid supporter of the Myopia Mindset, if you went to myopiamindset.substack.com, you'll be getting an extended version of this episode, and you are in for a treat. All right, let's get to it. All right, welcome to the Myopia Mindset. This is the podcast full of inspiration, motivation, and education to help you on your path towards success in myopia management. And I have a very special guest with me for this episode. Glenda Aleman has been in the eye care industry for 25 years. She started as a technician, then went on to become an optician, and then became an optometrist. And she is the founder and chief medical director of OK Love, which specializes in orthokeratology. That's how she's helping her patients, but she's also helping doctors implement myopia management into their practice. Glenda, welcome to the program.
Hi, Matthew. Thank you so much for having me. And first and foremost, I just want to say how grateful I am to be here because, we'd love to share the love about myopia. But for me, this is full circle because my biggest mentor has been Dr. Kerry Hesberg, your father. And so I find this so special to be here with you today when, I owe so much of my learnings to your father.
Definitely. Yeah. And Glenda is a perfect example. I say all the time on the podcast that Kerry has inspired and helped instruct so many doctors find their path to success with myopia management. Glenda is a perfect example of that. And she has gone far and beyond and really made myopia management her own. And that is really the point of this whole podcast is I want to introduce you, the audience, to the amazing people who I've met over the years and have amazing conversations with. And Glenda is definitely no exception. I have learned so much from you, Glenda, over the years. And I could not wait to get you onto the new podcast once I decided to do it. So I'm ready to go.
All right. Yeah. Thrilled to be here. So let's go.
Let's do it. All right. So a little bit of housekeeping up front. Glenda, why don't you let us know how our audience can get in touch with you if they have questions about anything in this episode or just want to reach out and contact you?
Absolutely. So you can email me directly. My email is G like Glenda, M like Mary, OHEEP@gmail.com. So that should read gmoheep@gmail.com. I'm also happy to share my cell phone with anyone and feel free to text me. And my cell phone number is 954-854-7910. Sometimes I'm a little slow responding, but if I don't text you back, just hit me again and I will get back to you.
All right. Yes. And also, if anything in this episode you liked, enjoyed, learned from, definitely like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star review wherever you found it. It really helps us get the word out, helps us spread the message about myopia management and how awesome it is. All right. So, Glenda, I've got so many things I want to talk about. I'm just brimming with energy here. But I really want to get to the start of your path, which started, as I mentioned in the intro, you were a technician. And I think that is such a valuable element of your story to be able to share with the audience, because I talk to staff all the time over the last couple of years, specifically with consulting. And I've talked to them about like what you can do to move yourself in a career path in this industry. And you are a living, breathing example of that evolution of the career path. So let's start there when you became a technician.
Thank you, Matthew. So absolutely. I actually started my career back in my country in Honduras as a technician, sales associate in Óptica Matamoros. And then when I moved here to the US, I was very fortunate to find out that I didn't need to have a degree to work in an optical. And I started my career in Walmart as a doctor's assistant. I just fell in love with the field. I love everything to do with glasses and with the eye care industry. I think, even as a technician, as doctor's assistant, I felt like we were doing so much for the patients. I was very fortunate to work alongside great doctors in my career. So I just always had this thirst for knowledge. I always wanted to learn more. I would read everything that came through the office just to gain more knowledge so I could help my patients better. And there was a point in my career where I needed to decide, to go back to school. And being a single mom, that was a big decision for me. I feel like it's just, sometimes you meet the right person at the right time. By the time that I was seriously considering going back to school, and at that point, I wasn't really sure if I was going to stay in the eye care industry because I wanted to find out what would be the best career that I could do as a mom. And I was pretesting a patient in Delray Beach in Walmart, and the patient was really excited to go get their eye exam. And when I said, okay, let me go get the doctor for you, he was like, what do you mean you're not a doctor? And I was like, no, I'm not the doctor. And, I said this in another podcast, and he just looked at me and he was like, why not? And, it was like that question just pierced to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, why not? And, that gentleman who I wish I have known, I wish I had his information. He literally changed my life because when he asked me that question, it made me question myself. And he was very reassuring to me, saying, you have a great personality. You are a very smart young lady. And sometimes, we just need to hear the right thing from somebody. Sometimes we do need validation from other people. And he validated me. And that gave me the strength to go literally the same day I signed up to take the ABO. And the rest is history. I remember walking into Nova after I decided, okay, I'm definitely going to do this. And I walked into Nova and I said, I'm here because I want to be an optometrist. And at that point, I had not enrolled in college yet. So, they looked at me like I was crazy. And they're like, okay, so do you have any prerequisites? I was like, no, that's why I'm coming here, to know what I need to do to be here. And they were like, well, first you're going to need to do 4 years of undergrad. And but the look of the lady was priceless. She was looking at me like she'll never be back. So I said, okay. I left Nova when I enrolled in college, all in the same day. And, for actually less than that, 3 years later, I went back and it was the same lady and I got to work with her. And that was amazing.
What was that reaction for her like, after you came back? Because you had said, she had this look about her like she didn't expect to see you again. What happened when she did see you again?
Literally, she was like, it's you. She was like, wow. And then we became really, really close. I loved her. But yes, so that was, I think, when you have a goal in mind, and for me, it's like, I only see the end of it. And, I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out on the way. But I like to share that because, hopefully you never know, just like that gentleman, like inspire me. Like I'm hoping, one day somebody listens to this and be like, oh my gosh, you inspire me, and do something.
Yeah. And that is exactly why I wanted to have you on. Well, for many reasons, but that is definitely one of them. And I love what you said about, that moment of validation for you. It was something that it sounds like you hadn't considered for yourself. And oftentimes I feel like we are our own worst enemy. Like we put up these roadblocks in our path towards what we want to do. And in your case, it took somebody saying to you like, hey, you could do this. You are this person that, naturally. So, when you say that you look at the end of the road as the goal and you'll figure out everything in between, can you go more into that, like more of that mindset? Because I think that's very important for people to understand.
Yes. So, there is this thing that they call, what is it? Analysis paralysis, right? Where somebody, and I know a lot of people, a lot of my great colleagues, right? That's one of the biggest roadblocks that is keeping them from starting myopia management.
Yeah.
because they're amazing clinicians, right? And I'm going to go that way since we're talking about myopia. I think it's appropriate.
Yeah.
They are trying to understand every little thing, every piece of the puzzle before they start just doing myopia management. And for me, and I know not everybody's like me, and, sometimes it can backfire, but it has worked well most of the time. I am the type of person that I will jump into something first and I'm like, you know what, I'll figure it out on my way. And, maybe that has to do with, the way my childhood was and, living in very poor conditions where I had to be very resourceful and I had to figure things as I went. So I'm the type of person that when I want to do something and, looking back into my life, there has been so many decisions or instances where I make a decision really quick. If I want to do something, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And a lot of times people will be like, oh, well, did you think about this? Did you think about, and I'm like, honestly, I didn't. I just know that I want to do it. But when we just act like that and we just go for it, you will find out that most of the times things will just unfold in front of you once you start it. And, you're going to learn along the way. We all learned along the way. Like I'm still learning every day. I learn something from either one of my patients or one of the parents that come to the clinic. So with that being said, I want to say directly to doctors who are in that stage with your father, Dr. Hesberg, he said it's like failure to launch. Like they have been to Vision by Design. They have attended multiple lectures on myopia management. They know these treatments work. And they want to understand every little thing, like, before they go ahead and start treating patients. And the reality is, even, my friends who are the greatest researchers, we still don't know. We're still trying to figure out things as we go.
Right.
Every month there's like a new paper.
Yeah.
So we're still trying to figure out things. So it's impossible to say, I'm going to figure out everything and learn everything before I get started with myopia management. So I guess to wrap it all up, I will just say, it's okay to get started and you will learn so much on the way. And we have now so many people like you, doing this podcast is amazing, as an amazing resource for doctors who want to get started, for patients who want to learn about information, for parents. And then, the beautiful thing about the myopia management community, and I think you can agree, Matt, is that we love it when we have someone else join us. Like we're very close, we help each other. Like I have so many great colleagues and we're like this little family that we all support each other. And, we're all very open about what we do. We love helping another colleague, get started.
Right. Yeah, it's the colleague, not competitor attitude. There just aren't enough of us in this industry who are ringing this bell, and doing myopia management at Glenda's level, where we really can't be choosy about, putting up walls between each other. We all have to share about what's working, what's not working, and help each other in whatever way that we can. And you mentioned analysis paralysis, which I think is so accurate. And I have found that, before even, because you were mentioning that, I want to know this information and this information and this information. And I have found a lot of doctors even fail to get to that point where they're like, well, I can't be the expert, so I can't position myself as somebody who's doing myopia management. I think that I think is equally as bad as the what is the saying? Like with the AOMC, we say go all in, and Glenda is the living embodiment of going all in. She's just drinking from that fire hose. She jumps into the deep end. She's ready to take it on. But like, what kind of advice can we give for the doctors like who are like, I'm not an expert. What are like 3 things that we can tell them? Like, just do these 3 things to get started and go
Number
on.
one. So number one, I would say everybody has a role to play when it comes to myopia management. And not everyone has to become an orthokeratologist or a myopia expert, but we all have a role to play, a very important role. And, I'm always advocating for my colleagues who just plain out would say, you know what, I don't work with pediatrics and I am not going to do myopia management. And they are one of my favorite people because at least they know where they stand.
Right.
They're not in between. They're not like undecided. For those practitioners who, just know very clear in their head that they don't want to get into myopia management, you still have a very important role to play in this whole space of myopia management. And that is that you need to educate the patients. That's all you got to do. Just mention to the patients, hey, your child is progressing, their myopia is getting worse. There are myopia management experts that can help your child. And I had a patient with his mother in my office on Saturday. And this little child, he's -10, which, it's a lot of myopia for a 10-year-old. And his mother was like, oh my gosh, she said, Dr. Salima, who is the doctor that referred him to me. She wasn't saying, Dr. Glenda, you changed my life. No, she said, Dr. Salima changed my child's life. I am so thankful, so grateful to her for telling me about you. And
Right.
she just kept on saying, how grateful she was that she found Dr. Salima because she guided her and sent her to me. And I literally asked her, can you please say that? Because I think it's so important for, the primary care physicians or, a dry eye specialist who doesn't want anything to do with myopia to know that they are changing these patients' lives and that the patients are so grateful to them. So that's number one. Number one, I think all of us, that applies to everybody, we need to educate the parents. It's our job, it's our duty to let them know what are the treatments there that are available. Number two is if you are actually considering on getting started with myopia management, you will find that once you have the conversation, it's all going to evolve on its own because parents are actually very interested in myopia management. And you want to get started by having the conversation with the parents. And if you don't feel fully confident to start right away, I would say put something on your calendar where you have a day where you're going to do myopia management consultation. That's going to give you a little bit of time to gather enough patients and to prepare, get information, and get ready where you have one day where you're going to kind of do a pre-launch of your myopia management practice. And I think once you do that, if you take those two steps, the rest is just going to happen on its own because Matt, that once they take those two steps, you will see the enthusiasm of the parents. You will see their face of hope and their, relief, knowing that there is something I can do to help my child. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. And that, at least for me, has been my greatest motivation. So I would say those would be the three steps. And once you take that step, enroll and become a member of the AOMC, great organization that helps doctors, and you have a great community of myopia experts at all different levels that can help you along the way.
Right. Yeah. I love what you said with, just start having the conversation. It never occurred to me that that was the best place to start, right? I love what you said because I've been in so many practices where they want to get started with myopia management, specifically with Ortho-K. And there is that shyness to start it because they feel unprepared or, like you had said earlier, analysis paralysis. And I think that's such a great little pearl to add is like, I should have said with them, hey, don't worry about all of the, don't get intimidated by the big picture. Just start having the conversation. This is important to me. This is what's going on with your child. This is what I would like to do about it. And if that means you want to start doing or recommending a treatment or referring to someone else, that's a great inflection point to find out whether or not you are that myopia management specialist or whether or not that's something that you should, refer out. And maybe there's a different specialty for you, or maybe that's something that you can grow into. So I love everything that you said. That's such a great point.
I have a shout out to do, and it's kind of also like a story relating to this specifically because there is this new doctor in town. She is killing it, and one day I'm sure you're gonna have her here speaking. Dr. Kiran G. in New York. And everybody knows me in the industry. I'm terrible with names. Right now, her last name escapes me. But Kiranj, she is in New Jersey. And I met with her at Vision Expo, and we had this kind of conversation. And she was like, how do I get started? And I literally told her, start having the conversation. Start having the conversation, set a date, and just what I shared with you guys. Well, right. She took my advice, literally. And she actually also was going to attend our boot camp in New York. Because she's amazing. She started having the conversation. She called me like 2 weeks after, and she's like, Glenda, I have my first 2 cases of Ortho-K. Do I wait? What do I do? I'm like, you're not waiting. This is what we're going to do. And, I got her all set up. She got her topographer. By the time she actually attended the boot camp, she already had like 3 cases of Ortho-K. But awesome. This is the difference between, just like going with it and, trying to figure out everything. And I was like, no, you don't want to wait. If you're ready for it, I'll help you. Take the patients and then we'll figure it out. And so it's amazing. She's awesome. She's killing it. And she is in a Costco.
Right on. Yes. Okay. This is something I want to talk about, this particular aspect in a little bit. But what I want to focus on right now is when you say, focus on the goal and figure it out as you go. In the way that you've described this process, what I love about it is that, what is that saying? Like, necessity is the mother of invention. So the necessity of you committing to this path and being like, okay, I don't have every single thing figured out, but I know where I'm going. And when these obstacles start to come up, that creates within you the necessity to begin to address it, to that drive to fix these problems, through OK Love, when you help doctors, implement myopia management, what are the obstacles that seem to pop up? What are the most common obstacles, in your opinion, that pop up in that phase?
So one of them absolutely is education, understanding, because, optometrists, we're a different type of clinicians. We're very conservative, and it's just the way that we are being taught in school. And because we have that very conservative nature due to our profession being so legislative, we're always want to start from a place where we definitely want to practice science-based medicine. We want to have all the evidence, all the research behind our back before we feel comfortable starting. And so I would say before any optometrist, in my experience, before they start doing myopia management, they do want to have a solid, a good foundation with their education, understanding, what are the different myopia management treatments, what are the pros and the cons, and, they really want to get deep into understanding of the mode of mechanisms and everything about it. So I have found that once they get the education, so a lot of pretty much all my doctors that complete the boot camp, they also go to AOMC. And I find that they start either attending different myopia management lectures. It could be a webinar. It could be listening to a podcast like this. Then they do maybe a boot camp. They attend the American Academy of Orthokeratology, AAOMC conference. And once they have that solid background, that knowledge, I find that that's when they feel comfortable about starting, even just having the conversations. The second barrier is obviously, financial. I have now different network groups, and working with people that comes from other businesses, I realized that optometry is not a very lucrative business. Unfortunately, we don't know a lot about business. And what I'm finding out is that, we actually struggle financially. And for a doctor to go and invest into a specialized equipment, it takes a lot. And a lot of the blockages, that we don't understand the business and the finance aspect of it. So that is another big barrier, is getting those doctors to commit to make that financial investment. Now, once they do it, they're like, oh my gosh, once we jump and we get into purchasing those equipments, we know that we're going to have enough patients that the equipment is going to pay on its own, and you are going to have your return on investment. But that is one of the biggest challenges. And the other challenge is this misconception that parents are not going to be willing to pay for these treatments. That's the biggest misconception that that we have. And I have to practice. So OK Love is a private practice that is dedicated specifically to myopia management. Every patient that comes in there comes in for Ortho-K. So that's a very unique and very different business. I don't face a lot of the challenges that other myopia management experts face because patients are coming to me for myopia management. Now, the other practice that I have is inside a Walmart. And this Walmart is in one of the most underserved communities here in Hialeah in Miami. And the type of parents that I have, a lot of them, they're hardworking people. I mean, they work in construction, they're mechanics, they're working in Dunkin' Donuts, they're cleaning houses. This is what they do. So you can imagine these people don't have a lot of money. And I say that because I started my myopia management practice in Walmart. And seeing that these patients, I remember my very first patient, the mother was willing. She said, Dr. Aleman, I'll do whatever I need to do. I'll work 3 jobs if I have to. She was even willing to go to a different office to get topographies done for her son to come back to me because I didn't have a topographer at the time. And to see that mother, being willing to do all of that for her son, that's when it clicked to me that, once we present these treatments to the parents, every parent wants to help their child and they will do whatever they need to do to help their child. What we cannot do is deprive them of that option, not telling the parents that there are treatments. That's what to me is completely unacceptable. Like I cannot even conceive the idea of not saying something to the parents, seeing a child that is progressing.
Yeah, and this is one of the greatest lessons that I've learned being in this industry, and I learned it from Glenda, is that it is inappropriate for you to make that decision for that parent, regardless of what their background is, how much money they make, where they come from. You are doing them an injustice if you make the decision for them by not telling them about myopia management. And Glenda opened my eyes about this. Like, this isn't something I learned at Herzberg Optical. You are being disrespectful to that parent if you don't make it their decision. Let them turn you down. If they can't afford it and they don't want to spend the money, let them tell you that's the case. Do not take that away from them. Glenda, when did you first learn this lesson? Because I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it comes from your days either as a technician or an optician, like very early in your career. Is that correct?
That is right. You want me to share my tortilla story? But I think that's a very valuable lesson. It changed my life. I was working in Honduras and in this optical, and every morning coming to the optical, we stopped by the corner, and this sweet lady was selling tortillas, and we'll buy tortillas, we get an avocado, and then we'll eat that, delicious tortilla with avocado, and that would be our breakfast. And we stop by and see this lady every single day. One day, this sweet lady comes into the optical to buy, to get an eye exam and to buy glasses. I wanted to help her because, we knew her, we developed a relationship. So when I went to help her, I said, oh my gosh, come over here. You have your prescription. I'm going to help you get your glasses. And I walked her over to the economy frame board. And when she saw that, she's like, and excuse my language, she's like, what the hell is this? And I was like, I'm going to help you, choose your frame because you just got your eye exam. And I'm going to help you choose a frame so we can get your glasses for you. And she's like, and why are you showing me this ugly stuff? She's like, I don't want one of these terrible frames. They're ugly. She's like, I want, and then she stopped and she said, oh, I see. She's like, you brought me here because I sell tortillas. And you don't think my money is worth it. And I was like, I to now, it's like my whole face, I feel like she's still standing in front of me. And I'm like, I just wanted to open a hole in the ground and the ground to swallow me. And I was like, oh my God, I just felt so bad. And she said, you thought you took me here because I sell tortillas and you don't think I can afford anything else. But she's like, yeah, you're right. I sell tortillas. I work really, really hard. And, tortillas was like, a stack like this was like 5 cents. And she said, I work really hard and I've been saving money for a long time because I've been, coming here and there was one frame that she wanted, that it was a high-end frame. And she said, I'm going to buy this nice frame. And guess what? You're not going to get my commission. And, it was terrible, but I learned my lesson. And since that day, I never judge. And, I hope that a lot of my colleagues are listening to this because this happens a lot, specifically in our profession. We tend to be like, oh, no, they can afford that frame, or no, we're not going to tell them about this treatment, or, and we're making those decisions for them. And we don't know how we actually might be offending that, parent or that patient. And the reality is that, even from the medical aspect, like if you have a disease and there are treatments available, it is our duty to inform the patient. And then the patient will say, well, sadly, I can afford this, or, but most times we will find out that they will find the means to get it done. So.
All right, well, that's it for this regular version of the episode, but the discussion doesn't stop here. It actually continues in an extended version of this episode, which is available to our Substack supporters. You can, if you're interested in getting the rest of the episode, consider becoming a paid supporter of the Myopia Mindset. In addition to an extended version of this episode and every other episode that we do, you'll also get access to exclusive monthly bonus episodes of the Myopia Mindset. And I know you're interested. You've made it this far. And for the cost is $12 a month, which is basically the cost of a cup of coffee each and every week. And that's how I like to put it. Listen, if you would buy me a cup of coffee each and every week to nerd out about myopia, to bring on amazing guests, to spread the word about how awesome myopia management is and how more ECPs should be engaged in this specialty, then please consider becoming a paid supporter of the Myopia Mindset. You can do so on our Substack. myopiamindset.substack.com is how you do that. Thank you so much for your consideration. I'll see you at the next one.